Hello, good afternoon. I am Anne Iveson and I'm here with Professor Lynda Gratton, Professor in the Management Practice faculty at London Business School. Lynda, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your keynote.
Oh, thank you, Anne. It was my pleasure.
It was very interesting and it brought back some distinct memories of me being here at the school doing the Sloan, where we were told about management and business was led by Porter's 5 forces. But having heard your speech today, I realise for the firm to exist in the future, they better understand Gratton's 5 forces. I wondered if you could illuminate some of those forces and maybe talk about a couple of the accelerating points which you think are the most interesting.
Yeah, well, thank you, Anne. I mean, it was a great opportunity to be the keynote this afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, really, the point I'm making is we're studying multinational firms around the world right now and looking at what they're thinking about with regard to the future. And they tend to talk about 5 forces. You know, the first thing they talk about, of course, is technology. And, you know, it's extraordinary to imagine that by 2020, 5 billion people will be connected to each other using relatively low-cost handheld devices, and they will have access to the abundant knowledge of the world as it becomes digitalized. So I think what that means is, you know, big implications on talent pools. You know, the kids of Rwanda right now are each getting a handheld computer. I mean, what's that going to do to them as they grow up? So I think one needs to look much more globally at talent. I mean, we also, of course, talked about globalization, and, you know, clearly executives around the world are very interested in what's happening with the talent pools of China and of India. And those countries are becoming very dissimilar in terms of their demography. You know, China's one-child family is having a big impact on demography and a huge focus, of course, on that one child. India, at the same time, is producing some world-class companies, Tata Consulting Services, Infosys, Mahindra being examples, but at the same time isn't yet managing to train or to educate all of its children. And then, you know, we talked a little bit this afternoon about some of the societal issues. You know, the fact that right now people around the world don't trust big business. You know, don't trust government. So there's a little bit of a gap there in terms of trust. And then finally, we talked about carbon. CO2. And whilst what we're noticing is executives don't see that as the biggest issue right now, when they look into the future, when they look to 2020 or 2030, what they're realizing is that CO2 will impact on climate change, that will impact on their business. So the book I'm writing at the moment, which is following on from my last book, The Shift, really talks about what companies need to do. And clearly one of those is that they have to see themselves as part of the dynamics of this emerging world rather than seeing themselves as separate from it.
Can I ask you a follow-on question? Because you talked about how people will need to change going forward, that the successful people will be those that specialise. The day of the generalist is gone or replaced by Wikipedia, as you said. But thinking forward to the CEO of the future then, how will we get those CEOs of the future in terms of specialists versus generalists? How do you think that's going to evolve?
Well, I mean, I think the CO2 job has always been very difficult, but I think it's getting even more difficult. And there's a couple of reasons for that. You know, clearly, in terms of social media, when everyone in the world can look at you and photograph you and put everything about you onto a social media platform, that puts authenticity and visibility very near the top of the agenda. I think that some of the big challenges that a CEO faces outside of their company, like CO2, like climate change, can only really be handled with these multiple stakeholder groups. And I think we have to train executives to do that. So I think the journey that the CEO is, that the person will take to being a CEO in the future is going to be rather different from it is now. And I think in particular, this notion of crucible experiences, which is to say, you know, what are the experiences that they would have to really make this work? I think that that's going to be very crucial as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.